Yo, what is up, guys? Welcome to the Tony and Dakota podcast. Today, we got another special guest.
This is Dustin McKibben. He owns Art Home Photo, and he is the guy who we use for the majority of our real estate photos. Ooh. Any of them that look good anyways. We've got some folks who go out there for us, who work for us, who take some okay photos. But if you really want your properties to look awesome, Dustin's the guy because they're good quality photos. He also has his drone license. I see him rant sometimes about how other folks don't have a drone license and are still flying a drone. He does real estate photography. It's really good quality. It's reasonably priced. That's his primary business. We're also going to talk to him about some rental properties, some real estate activity, relationship stuff, all kinds of stuff in this podcast. This is Dustin McKibben.
Thanks for coming on, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Excited to dig into whatever value add I can give you.
Yeah. There's a guy that actually gets really upset every time he's in like one of the groups that I'm in, and he's always upset that I don't use him for photos. I think I told you him.
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
like,
all right.
Yeah. He's like, he gets upset.
I would get upset too if I wasn't the best.
Well, I remember when you got upset whenever we tried to use an alley and you texted me and you're like, hey, bro, you could use me.
I just know what you guys deserve.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. First question. Just want to smash you right off the bat.
Give it to me.
Dakota tried to get you to lower your price, and you wouldn't. You were talking about volume. You were like, volume. We can do a lot more volume. Tried to get you to lower your price. You were explaining how it really would actually end up being detrimental to your business. And I think it's something that folks who are in photography will do in order to get business, just like real estate agents. They do the same thing. They're like, oh, I'll cut my commission down to almost nothing so that I can get your listing. And then they end up not providing as good a service because they're stressed out of their mind. So talk about that a little bit. Why do you keep your prices where you keep your prices at? And I mean, you're doing something right. You got a Tesla Model Y, so.
Sure. Happy to kind of talk through business structure, pricing, et cetera. So I was fortunate enough to jump into this business a little bit later in the game. There was already someone really dominating the market when I jumped in, and he was like charging like $100 a house.
Wow.
And he was like flooded with business, just going gangbusters crazy and like doing a great job. Like he was not like a bad photographer by any means. But what I quickly found by kind of talking with him is he was on like the border of bankruptcy. Like, I'm like, how can someone be crushing it and also be like on the edge of bankruptcy? And so I realized pretty early on, I didn't want to price myself in a way where I couldn't sustain my business. And so I was like, I've got to have minimums. I've got to have standards in order to really just like keep providing for me and my family, and also provide for my agents through my own like mental health, et cetera. And so I was like, I'm going to come in and not be like the cheapest guy in the game. I'm going to come in, I'm going to be like the most expensive guy, but I'm going to deliver and show up for my clients each and every day. And that's kind of how I've treated everything I do. By always, like, if I say I'm going to be there for you guys or anyone, like I'm going to be there and I'm going to have those photos back to you the next day. And that's like what you're paying for in that premium price. Whereas like other guys that I know that are the cheaper, they're like, I just don't feel like getting up this morning. You know, I'm not going to go shoot that house. I'm like, well, we're planning on getting that on the market tomorrow. We really need that. I'm like, yeah, sorry. My back's kind of a little achy. So that'll never happen with us. And through that process, by having those little extra margins, we'll call them, we've been able to scale. Now we have 2 other photographers for us. We actually have a full-time admin coming to work for us next month that we're really excited that it'll take a lot of the minutia out of the game. But yeah, so I don't know if I answered your question at all.
Yeah.
Have you been thinking about investing in real estate?
It's not like what you see on HGTV.
We created a course to show you how to really invest and create a profitable flipping and wholesaling business.
We give you marketing strategies like how to pull lists, who we target, and where we find the money.
We go over sales, which includes live calls and negotiations, scripts, role-playing, and so much more.
Everything that you need to know to flip houses is in this course. And if there's anything that we missed, we will create a video to answer your specific question.
This knowledge has made us over $1 million, and we're selling it today for just $997. Click the link below.
Yeah, that kind of goes into my next question too, which is like how your business has grown, like where you came from when you first started, the early struggles of getting started, some of the headaches and the things that people don't think about, because I know a lot of folks seemingly like, this is just like picking on women a little bit, but it seems like women who just got out of like either high school or college, they're like, I'm going to do photography on the side as like a fun thing. And they buy an expensive camera and they take a photo class and they're like, let's go. Like, I'm going to solicit all my friends and like start taking wedding photos and things like that. And they kind of do a blanket thing too, where they're just like, I'll do photos for any occasion.
Yeah.
And so what are some of the things that you struggled with early on, and where did you come from, and how did you grow to understand these concepts so that your organization could be more bountiful and exceptional?
And when did you start?
Are we talking? So I've been a photographer for a very long time. So are we talking real estate specific or?
No, just your whole journey.
My whole journey.
As a photographer.
Buckle up. So I'm one of the very few, a rare bird who actually went to school for photography. Went to school up in Rochester, New York, a little school that is like world renowned in photographic engineering. Because my parents were like, you cannot go to art school. We're not paying for one of those dancy, happy-go-lucky art degrees. If we're going to help you go to college, like, got to be an engineer. And I was like, well, gosh darn it, I really like taking pictures. And so I was like, how can I marry those two? And I found the only school in the freaking world who offered photographic engineering.
What's the name of the school?
RAT.
RAT, the only school in the entire world that does this.
But at the same time, I was pretty young, dumb, immature, and got off like that first little taste of freedom when you get to school out of state and you're in orientation, and the group leader's like, hey, Dustin, like, I need you to come over here. Like, we're going to go take this calculus test to see which calculus you're going to be in. And I was like, what? Like, why does no one else in my group have to take this test? And she's like, well, that's because they're in advertising. I'm like, advertising? Like, yeah, like we have a whole advertising photography program as well. But you were in like the select few that got into the photographic engineering program. I was like, gosh, advertising sounds like a lot more fun. I was like, how do I get into that? She's like, oh, you just have to sign this piece of paper saying you're switching majors. And I'm like, yeah, let's do that. If I don't have to take calculus and I can still hang out with all these guys and take pictures, let's do it. And so I quickly, like, without really realizing what I was doing, I was totally changing the trajectory of what I was going to do for the rest of my life. Because the average person who comes out of a photographic engineering program is working for like Xerox, Kodak, you know, Raytheon, like big tech companies developing the cameras versus using the cameras. And I was like, I just don't really want to be in an office, like in like a clean room, making sensors and whatnot.
Protecting government secrets.
Correct. Like a lot of my friends I went to school with work in the satellite sector, like taking satellite imagery and like cleaning it up using computers and algorithms and whatnot. But I was like, that sounds really cool now in hindsight in my 30s. But so I guess to kind of pivot in that story, in high school, a friend and I used to DJ, and we would do wedding DJing. And what it started by being in high school, seeing like what we'd pay someone to DJ the prom. And I was like, gosh, we're paying them how much? Like, we've got a computer. Like, we could do this. Billy Bob's got some subs we can pull out of his car. We can wire something together. And so we started doing proms, which led to weddings, which led to me taking pictures at weddings to market ourselves. And at that time, like, MySpace had just become a thing. Really dating myself here. And so we were like, gosh, Dustin, your pictures are pretty good. That's what led to my passion for photography. So fast forward, moved to New York, go to school. My buddy's like, hey, we should DJ weddings in New York. Like, how cool would that be, being from small town Fort Wayne? I'm like, yeah, that would be pretty rad. Make a little extra cheddar. And so we go to this bridal show. We do a booth or whatever. And people are like, gosh, you guys are way too cheap. You must not be real DJs. Because we were charging Indiana prices in New York. You're like, whoa, we've really undercut ourselves. But there was a photographer across from us, and he saw my work because he saw the photos we had like printed out of our events that we had DJed. He's like, God, who took those photos? And I was like, oh, I did. He's like, have you ever thought about photographing weddings? And I was like, gosh, I mean, sure, I've thought about it, but that seems like that'd be a lot of work. He's like, well, why don't you come shoot weddings for us? And he was a terrible photographer, but a great businessman. And so I got to sort of learn through him the nuts and bolts on how to run a business. And that sort of is what led me into sort of wanting the financial freedom. He had a bunch of rental properties in New York, and seeing that like wedding photography allowed you that freedom during the week to kind of manage those, take care of those. You know, if somebody needed something, he wasn't at a 9 to 5 where he had to leave and be like, oh, I need to like take an early lunch to go check on a leaky pipe or go mow a lawn or whatever. And so I quickly realized like that was kind of the life I wanted to set up. And so that's when I started really pursuing wedding photography as sort of my primary source of revenue. And then it wasn't until fast forward now, we moved back to Fort Wayne, and we were getting ready to build our first home, that I was like, gosh, how can I make just a little bit of extra money to like help subsidize this build process? And that's when we kind of got into real estate photography. It was just trying to make a little extra. Now here we are.
Nice.
How long ago was that for the real estate?
That was probably in, gosh, be about 5 years ago. So whatever that was.
2018?
Sure.
What's the biggest difference between like taking photos of people and taking photos of like buildings? Is there a big difference, or is it pretty similar?
I think it just depends on your personality. So like the majority of real estate photographers are pretty introverted people. They choose real estate because they don't have to deal with people. Like all the people who work for me are, you know, pretty introverted individuals. So I think that was out the gate what separated me, was like I wanted to love and care about the realtors and just kind of like help them in any way I could. And they weren't used to that. They were like, whoa, like you actually want to take good photos for me? Like how can I help you kind of mentality? And that sort of, I think, took them aback. But as far as like, you know, the differences between real estate and people, I would say, obviously they're vastly different subject matters, but like how you treat the client is the same.
I mean, like, or like, do you have to do different angles? And whereas, like, you know, humans look better from the top down, and whereas, like, you know, maybe houses are bottom up, or like differences in like the way that you have to actually take them.
Sure. I mean, like we use different cameras, we use different
cameras too,
lenses,
dang.
Different lenses.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, the process is totally different. But I think we, in between these stories of weddings and houses, we also got into video, and I think getting into video really helped craft like a mindset of telling a story. And I think translating that into real estate photography is like, okay, how can we tell the story of this home?
Are you letting deals fall through the cracks because you don't have good systems in place?
We've been there before, and we've tried several different CRMs, and Ari Simply has been the best.
Ari Simply tracks your KPIs, does automatic follow-ups for you, and even records your incoming phone calls.
The system is simple to use and has more features than we even know what to do with.
If you're looking for a great CRM, try Ari Simply today. We put the link in the description. Check it out now.
Has really led to some success. Like, for example, one of our little, let's call it secret sauces, that really separates us from others is like we shoot the house at the same height, or at least close to it, for every shot, so that when you're looking through it on Zillow, like it's a consistent flow from angles. There's no like looking down at a sink or like laying on the floor, like looking up at the ceiling. Like it's consistent flow throughout the house.
I like it.
So when you moved from New York to Indiana, did any part of you want to stay in New York?
No, every part of me wanted to go somewhere warm. So yeah, like I was bound and determined to go somewhere with like water. So I was like California, Carolinas. That was the goal, one of those two. And in fact, like senior year of college, went to California, did like a road trip along the coast with my college roommates. And we're all like, oh, where do we all want to be and whatnot. At the time, I was still like dating my now wife. And I knew like I had to I was going there to prepare the sales pitch on like how to get her to be okay with going there as well, because she is like a Fort Wayne homebody through and through, love her to death. And so I then came back, booked a ticket to take her out there, and of course it rained the whole freaking week we were there. And she's like, I don't want to be somewhere where it rains the whole time.
Gosh.
Was it New York City, New York?
No, so it's Rochester. So it's about like, it's so funny. So you live in Fort Wayne. I come home for holidays, and people are like, gosh, like, how's the Statue of Liberty? Like, you must go all the time. You must eat the best hot dogs. And I was like, well, actually, like, Rochester, New York City is like the same distance as like Rochester to Fort Wayne. Like, that's how big New York State is. But so I mean, I would still get down to New York probably like every couple months though, because everyone I went to school with was pretty much from New York and New Jersey. So it gave me like, I have a lot of East Coast friends.
Did you feel like the culture and like the pace and like that sort of thing was different there, or like how does it compare to the Midwest as far as like the people, the culture, the community, the resources, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say Rochester in particular is not very indifferent than Fort Wayne. I would say it's kind of in that same regrowth period of like industry and like trying to revitalize their downtown right now, especially. But what's cool about upstate New York specifically is you have Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse. So you kind of have this like three major cities all within like an hour and a half drive of each other. So I think you guys recently went to Niagara Falls. So like we would like go over to Niagara Falls for like a day just to like hang out, walk around Canada, and then we'd go back to school for class that afternoon. So, I mean, like those things were easy. So like that was kind of cool. So as far as like the hustle and bustle though, that like people are accustomed to with New York City, like no, like we didn't, it was similar pacing to here.
Is it close to Buffalo?
Yeah, so it goes Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse. Okay. So it's like when I got into wedding photography, when I lived up there, I would shoot weddings in all three cities. Wow. So it was kind of like a big pot for living in like a similar cost of living situation to here.
Wow.
So some folks see you in your Tesla Model Y. You have a pretty nice house. For people who want to get into photography, like what is the potential? Like how much money are you able to make, and what kind of life are you able to afford?
So I mean, I get parents that call me all the time, and they're like, Dustin, I see you on Facebook, or like I know someone who knows you. Like my son or daughter, they want to go to school for photography or art or design, like, and I see you just like crushing it. Like what? Would you have coffee with them, or would you kind of coach me through like what to tell them? Like, I'm just so nervous as a parent, like about to have a child, like go through this. And I try to tell them like, really honestly, like you can be successful in anything you do. Mm-hmm. Like any form of art, like you could be a freaking like painter and just kill it. It's just all about your business. Like, I mean, and how you market yourself and stand out from the rest of the competition. Like, had you asked me like 6 years ago, Dustin, do you think you'd be like shooting 10 houses a day with a team of others? Like, Tony, you're freaking crazy. But like, this is where I'm at. Like, this is where my path took me. And, you know, we made it work and we got successful and we figured out the numbers. So like, I guess I'm going around in a circle here, but I think you can make anything work. It's just about surrounding yourself with people who can help take you to the next step. And there's so much valuable content now on YouTube and the internet that I think helps coach you through. But I think the biggest hurdle that artistic people have is just they put their art first, business second. Whereas I think you really have to put business first, art second.
That's kind of interesting too that you say that, because we've had a lot of folks reach out to us, and in fact, like one of our mentors, Jay Redding, used to say, "Hey, you can take me out to lunch. Just make sure that you pay that you pay for my lunch if you're going to take me out. And I'm going to teach you stuff." But it's difficult to teach someone everything that you know in an hour, especially if your mouth is full half the time. So that's why we created a course like specifically for that, so that this will be a good spot to put the course in the actual recording of this. That's why we created the course. And so that's always what we like we would encourage you to do too. When folks reach out to you, it's like, hey, everything that I know, you can literally find it. It's like 9 hours of content, and it's right here, and it's like $997.
Yeah, I know. I've had so many people say I need to make a course. It's just like my brain goes a million miles a minute, and I'm like, I don't even know what that course would look like. I need to just like have a week off of just like soul searching on like, because somebody's like, you should make one on wedding photography. Because I've got a buddy who has one on wedding photography, charges like $2,500 for his course. He makes like $500,000 a year just letting his course just sell. Wow. And I'm like, gosh, that sounds great. And then someone's like, well, you could do it on real estate photography too. And I'm like, okay, yeah. And it's like, or you could do one on for realtors on real estate marketing. It's like, oh, that sounds interesting too. So there's so many avenues I could go down, and I'll get there eventually. Just got to figure out which one makes the most sense.
I'll help you make an outline. I'm pretty good at that.
Outline maker.
Yeah, I say it's definitely hard whenever you want to help people, and then you're like also taking away from your business,
Correct,
from your time, from your family and stuff. And like that's always been the difficult part, is like people like Jay helped us get started, but now the more that we get known, and the same thing with you, the more that you advertise, the better that you are, the more people they're going to reach out, and eventually you're going to have to say no.
And you're going to have to get shorter with people than you'd like to.
Yeah, even though you want to help them. And like that's kind of where we're getting to, is like, man, I want to help so bad, and I really do, but like I literally cannot. It's going to like now take so much from you that it's like, but in order to still help them, then I think you're going to have to create a course or something, because it's like, man, I want to help, and obviously you're going to make money too, but that's okay as long as you're still like wanting to help the people and stuff. Like that is our intention and goal for making the whole thing, is like, man, I can't keep taking out time of my day to help everybody.
right?
Which is crazy. Like that's a hard thing to like accept, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough because especially if you have like a servant's heart, like you just want to give. And then when you have kids, especially, it's like, you're like, okay, I need to be home. I need to, take care of these guys, make sure they know who their freaking father is.
Yeah. I got a personal question now, actually, because something that I've noticed that I've struggled with is that whenever I'm in a long-term relationship, or like if you have kids or like your parents or your good friends, I've noticed that I'm more likely to give somebody new more of my time, because I'm like, man, this person's new, they want help or something, and then I forget about my priorities. I'm like, I'm always going to be with them. Do you find yourself doing that at all, or do you usually like, no, this is my priority, my wife, my kids, my friends are my priority, so I'm sorry that you need help right now, but like my priority is my family?
So to reiterate the question, it's like whether or not like prioritizing current existing relationships over new relationships.
Yeah, in general, I just think that like for me, I think that my wife or like my kids or like my family, my good friends should be, in my opinion, like the ones that I will be more intentional with, that I'll spend time with, but they usually get what's left of me after I go and have meetings with new people, because they're reaching out to me saying, hey, I want advice, I want help, I want this, and then I want to give them all that. Then I get home at 9 o'clock at night, and then now they get me for another 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and I'm exhausted. Now they're getting what's left of me. So do you find yourself getting more like that, or are you more like, no, my priority is them, and I'm sorry, I can't help you right now?
No, I wouldn't say, like, I'm pretty good at now. Maybe when I was first getting started, when like realtors would call me like at all hours and like, hey, I just have a question. I want to pick your brain about like this property. I'd be like, babe, can you do bedtime tonight? Like, I need to take this real quick. And I'm still like, bedtime is like my biggest hurdle I'm trying to get better at. But no, like I would say now that we're in a place of, we're very comfortable with how many clients we have and the people we're serving and the relationships we've built. I'm good about like just shutting the phone off and kind of just saying like, they can leave a message, I can get back to them. Part of what I'm excited about having this new admin come on is like those kind of people can kind of like, she can be my gatekeeper, like kind of filtering those into like scheduling, set times. Like, hey, Dustin has time twice a week to talk to those people who are just solely looking for advice, solely looking for help. And like, because again, we're just trying to get back time with those that we love, those that we care about, because that's a huge priority for me this year, is to kind of reshift the focus. We've done the building. The building is good. Like we have the pieces that are all in place to crush it, to kill it. But now we need to like not lose sight of the ones that helped us get there. So,
Well, let's talk about that then. How did you get to the point where you actually did build it? And then how do you know when to stop building? Because that's a hard part for people is they keep getting and getting and getting, and then it's hard to know, okay, I've got enough now. I need to prioritize my family. How did you build to that point? And then how did you know when enough was enough? Did you pre-plan it? Did you guys talk about it? Or are you just like, we can support our bills now?
no, so that's like the funny thing. The more I reflected on this the last few weeks, is like, again, like I said earlier, like real estate photography was not in the plans. It wasn't like, all right, we're going to get to this point, and then in this year, we're going to just pivot completely into houses. It was sort of just happen chance. We shot a wedding, and the bride's mom, who was a pretty predominant realtor here in town, saw the photos, and she was like, hey, the photos you took of the church were like really good. Do you do real estate or houses? Like, would you ever consider that? And I was like, I mean, I can do anything, right? That's like my thought. And so I said, sure. And that, like, somebody saw those photos that led to this person, that led to this person, to led to this person. And the next thing you know, it's like dominoes. I was like, there might be something here. Because again, we came in as like, we're going to be the most expensive. And people were like, I'm willing to pay to have, you know, better stuff. And so then, like, from there, we're just like, okay, how much do we need per month to really be sufficient? And then we're like, okay, hit those numbers. And they're like,
How much was it, just out of curiosity?
I couldn't even tell you. I don't.
And then how long ago was this? Like in 2018 when you
Be
first?
like 2018, because at that time, like, the real estate income was like, okay, we want crown molding. How many houses do we need to get crown molding throughout the house? Or like, how much to get wainscoting added to the staircase? Or like, add like the epoxy floor to the garage. It was just like a game to me, almost like, how many more houses to do this, to do that, to have like a bar in the basement.
Dude, I got to say something real quick there, and then I want you to continue that. But that is like so good to do, is like break it down exactly like that. If you break down the numbers, it's crazy how much simpler it is for your mind to go out and get it. So like, I love that.
100%. So yeah, so then from there, I was like, that's kind of when it became a business. It started as like a side hustle game that I was really driving to, like, oh, I want to like do nicer things in my house. And then I was like, before I know it, like, the beautiful thing about real estate versus weddings is like, it's repeat. So like, now that realtor's calling me for every house, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's starting to feel like a business. And so then, yeah, my wife was like, when are you giving up the house thing, Dustin? We've built the house. We have it. You can give it up now. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I started to see the path forward to getting my weekends back. And at that time, we only had 2 children. So we weren't like in that phase of life where we had t-ball games or ballet performances yet, but I could see it coming. And I knew it was much harder to train other wedding photographers than it would be to train other real estate photographers. And so I was like, this seems like this could be a more sustainable business long term, where I could actually work on the business, whereas I currently worked in the business. And that's where I wanted to get to. And that's where I finally feel like, after, 5 years, like we are there. Like, I'm able to sit down here with you guys while my other 2 are out shooting houses.
That's awesome.
So like, I'm making money while I'm sitting here. So it's like, I can go on vacations without like losing money. I'm still making money. So like, I would say that's where I feel like, okay. And then also like critical mass, like, we're already, I would say, the biggest real estate photography company in Fort Wayne, or probably even like Northeast Indiana. So then the question becomes, like, in terms of growth, like continual growth, it's like, do we hit other markets? Do we go after South Bend? Do we go after Indianapolis? So those are questions like we as a team are discussing. Like, do I want that in my life? Do I want to add more stress? Do I want to, like, when is enough enough? To, go back to your question. And it's like, my kids are young right now. It's like, I want to be present in their lives. And I feel like I've been grinding so hard for the last 5 years that I'm ready to kind of like be present for a little bit until they're, all in school. And then maybe we'll kick up the machine again and start the grind all over again.
Yep. That's awesome. I would say that's what I like too, is that you can always think about what is the life that you want to create, and then that's why I'm thinking the course might be perfect for you too. Like, maybe you do take some time out, you make a course or something that's still helping people, because that's what I always think about, is like, if you stop growing, then now you, and like spend time with your family, I always think about how many people am I not helping by doing this? Like my decisions are affecting a lot of different people, but if you had a course or something, you continue to still be present and you're still helping a massive amount of people.
Right.
And so then I'm like, oh, that might be able to still do both of what you're trying to do. You get all your time and it doesn't take any more of your time, no more stress added. And then bam, you're still making more money and you get more time with your.
Well, and you're saving money on future therapy bills for your kids because you got to be a present parent.
There you go. See, that's tax benefits and stuff. That's like that's the side benefits of it. That's futuristic thinking.
That's where I'm at.
So, Dustin, do you have rental properties?
Yep.
How'd you get started in that? What inspired you? And how many rental properties do you have? Just walk somebody through the reasons why and like your mentality.
Yeah. So my twofold. The photographer in New York that I worked for a few years. He had 10, 12 properties in New York, all multifamily. And I get that lifestyle that I saw him living through having those. I was like, gosh, it just seemed like perfect. And at the same time, my dad he had picked up a commercial property, and he said that the money that I generate from this is what I'm contributing to your college. And then at the end, when you graduate, I'll sell the building and I will have paid nothing for your college. I'll get all that money back. Long story short, he still owns that property to this day because it's doing pretty well. But yeah, I was like, gosh, I just see passive income just started getting into my head. I was like, I need to figure out a way to obtain this because that seems like that's the long-term goal for, wealth building. And so my wife is a doctor. And so when she was in med school down in Indy, we ended up in Indy instead of the Carolinas or the California like I wanted, but it's fine. Not bitter at all. But when we were trying to decide where we were going to move after she finished med school, it was pretty clear that she wanted to move back home to Fort Wayne. And so I found a land contract deal in Fort Wayne. I was like, how about this? Let's buy this house on land contract, rent it out, and then when we're ready to move back to Fort Wayne, it'll have paid us back our down payment. And she's like, okay, yeah, sounds great. My dad helped kind of secure the deal, and we got the house, and the couple was this sweet old couple that we ended up renting it to. And they're like, we're going to die in this house. We're going to be here forever. And I was like, oh gosh, this seems perfect. And so then fast forward,
they died 30 days later. And
well, they're from Ohio, and they moved to Fort Wayne for health reasons, to be closer to major hospitals.
To be in a state that's rated worse on the least healthy states in America.
Ironically, when I did get the house back, there were Pringles cans full of cigarette butts. And I'm like, oh, it's gosh.
You'd be surprised at how many people we see that are on ventilators smoking.
Oh gosh. I think it was Sasha I photographed for Sasha and Anthony.
Yep.
And we do before and afters for all of their projects.
That's awesome.
And I can't tell you some of the befores that I've walked into for them. She scrubbed the walls and pulled the paintings and pictures off the walls, and you could see the outlines of where the shelves were because of all the freaking smoke that was in that house.
That is funny. Oxygen,
yeah,
carcinogen.
Oxygen. Just need a hit of both to survive.
Yep.
But so long story short, picked up that land contract, rented it out, decided we liked getting the passive income and the rent money from that. And so we stretched ourselves to buy a house for us to live in when we moved back to Fort Wayne, and then quickly got addicted to that feeling. And then so we bought a duplex in the 2008, and everyone thought it was crazy to invest in the 2008 at that time.
What year?
This would have been about 5 years ago.
Okay.
Back when it was not as cool as it is now.
Yep.
Which I don't even know if it is cool now. But
oh wait, no.
It's coming up. We got Ophelia's, we got the Wells Corridor really trying to.
I still don't like it, but
I know.
Yeah,
I mean, most people don't like it. But
I don't know, man. I see a lot of people, they're always talking about how great it is, and they love the 2008, and everybody keeps buying there. I'm like, man, I see the 2008 as the same as 2006. It's just
yeah.
I think it's not that bad. It's a step up a little bit, but it's
Well,
Well,
it's
that
like,
doesn't mean we won't buy there.
Yeah, we'll buy
We'll
anywhere.
send- please
Send-
call us.
Yeah,
Send
we'll
us
buy
the leads.
We buy 06,
Send us
03, 08,
all the-
all everywhere. We'll
Look at
buy
me.
it.
Send us all the leads.
We'll buy it all. We'll buy it all.
but I think it's just like West Central's gotten so saturated that
Yeah.
and overpriced.
Probably starting to go over.
That like
Yep.
yeah, it's starting to bleed over into the 08.
Yep.
But yeah, so bought a duplex over there, which has done freaking really well for us.
What street's done?
Putnam.
Okay, that's a good one actually.
Yeah. So we get your letters all the time for it. But so we Airbnb both sides.
Wow.
And so we bought that house for like I want to say like $30,000
Yep.
5 years ago, and now we rent each side for like $2,000 a piece.
Wow.
So
That's insane.
yeah, we've done a lot of work to it since we got it.
How
But
much did you put into it?
oh gosh, probably like $20,000.
That's not even. That's a lot,
A lot for me,
dude. $50,000 investment, bringing in $4,000 a month.
but it was like a slow drip. So like someone move out, I mean, all right, let's do the floors.
Yeah.
Someone move out, like all right, let's do
Oh.
the cabinets. Someone moved out, let's do new countertops.
Yep.
Let's paint it.
That's
So,
awesome.
And then finally we're like, we've done just enough on one side. We're like, let's just freaking Airbnb it.
Yep.
Then the other side was like needed a full overhaul. And so we were like, well, and then you're like already paying for Wi-Fi for one. It's a duplex.
Yeah.
Put the router in the middle. Boom.
Yep.
So we're already paying. It doesn't have split utilities, so we're already paying the utilities.
Yeah. Might as well Airbnb.
Correct.
That's awesome.
So that's been really good to us. We got into the lake world and bought a lake property to Airbnb, and that turned into a nightmare. So we sold that.
Where was it?
On Crooked Lake.
Oh, really? It didn't do well.
No, it did really well.
Okay.
The neighbor was like a pain in my ass, like constantly calling me. Oh, there's a beer bottle out here, like next to my pier.
How did he get your number?
So just like the people like that sold it to us off market were like best friends with them, and or not, I wouldn't say best friends, but cordial with their neighbors. Everyone at the lake is like family. And so we went up there, and they were pissed from the get-go that they didn't have an opportunity to buy it before we did. Because they were like, we wanted that. We would love to have our kids own that so we could be next door to each other. And I was like, sorry, like right place, right time. And so, yeah, so it was kind of like their life mission to make my life hell.
Really?
And it just became to the point where my wife was like, you have to get rid of this.
Did
like,
you sell it to him?
no, I offered it to him though. Like, cause I was like, I don't want the next person that buys it to have the same relationship that
Yep.
I did. So I went to him and I said, hey, like, I can't be bullied any longer. Like for my own mental health, my family's health, like I just can't. So like, I'm going to give you first opportunity to buy this off me. You like lowballed the hell out of me. And I was like, okay, well, if you want to come back with a serious offer, in the meantime, I'm going to throw it out in like Facebook groups and stuff like that. And just like see what people want to pay for it. Because it was a really unique property. It was split up into 3 lots with the house being on one of them. And so it was kind of hard to price. And so, yeah, we had a realtor bring us an offer that felt really good. And he got just livid about it. It's like, you're going to hell. Like, you lied to me. You said you're going to give me the first opportunity to buy. I'm like, I did give you first opportunity. You offered me $100,000 for it. And I was like, it's worth way more. I paid more than that when I bought it.
Right.
Like, come on, man.
Yeah, why would I lose money?
Yeah.
That's
So-
interesting. Yeah, that's interesting because that happens a lot. That happens a lot with people. And like, so when you say he bothered you though, and he like made your life hell, like how long did it go on for, and what kind of things did he do, and like, what did you try to like stop it?
So yeah, he would text me at all hours, like, hey, like they have people over here, like causing noise, having a bonfire down by the water. Like I work, at 6 a.m. because they lived there year round. That was the other thing. It wasn't like somebody who was just coming up for the weekend. Like that was their house, and we were renting it every day, all the time. And, just that transient traffic, and also being like an hour away, harder for me to like validate like stories he would tell me, and things like that. Like, because we tried to limit it to people, because it was a small little like studio style cottage. So we were like, oh, 2 people. But then they'd come to Angola, and then their entire family reunion from Angola would like come to be on the water with them. And so like little things like that like, it doesn't bother me. I'm here in Fort Wayne, but clearly it was bothering him. And then like if people left trash out near the water, like he would just throw a conniption and like text me, send me pictures, call me, threaten to call the cops.
Why didn't you block him?
I really should have. But at the same time, it's like he was also my eyes and ears up there in the event that something did seriously happen.
I'd be like, if it were me, I would just block him, wait for the police to call. Like
Right.
that's so, I'm just so unemotional about stuff like that. I'm like, screw it, dude. If something bad happens, cool.
Right.
But like we've had a lot of people that threaten us too, and so that's why I ask, because I'm sure that people listening have like had a lot of threats, and like it's like hard to know what to do and how to deal with it. It's like very common though, and it's crazy how difficult that other people can make it. And everybody thinks that like real estate investors or all these rich people who have all this money and can do all this stuff, and they have this perception. It's like, dude, we deal with a lot of bull crap. That's why we're doing like well, and why we're getting money is because we deal with so much bull crap during the day that we should maybe make a little bit of something.
Oh, I mean, heck, frick, Christmas morning, we had a when we had that freeze at a washing machine, the like drain pipe froze.
Oh gosh.
And the tenant had decided she was gonna like do all her laundry on Christmas morning.
Really?
And friggin' flooded the Airbnb. And
Oh
so
my-
she's calling me
the
crying.
Airbnb?
Yeah, so she's like calling me crying like about like, I don't know what to do. I'm like this 20-something-year-old nurse who's never, turned a valve off or anything. And I'm like, so I'm like walking her through how to like turn the water off to the washing machine. And I'm like, can you like get towels on it? And she's like, that's what I was washing.
Oh my gosh.
I was washing on my towel.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, oh gosh.
Dude.
But it all worked out.
How many properties do you have then? And then like how often does stuff like just issues pop up?
I say like, like once a year, twice a year, like we get like a little something pops up. But as far as now, so we've sold the lake. So we're down to 3 doors, 1 duplex, 1 single family. We're trying to buy a duplex this year. We've been trying since last year to buy it, but it's sort of a sticky situation that we're trying to navigate.
It's a specific one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Correct. So, and if that doesn't work out, I'm sure we'll buy something else. We try to buy 1 property a year.
Yep.
And just kind of like slow burn that way. Because it's like our retirement strategy, if you will.
Yep.
Not
So
trying
all
to be,
3 of them are Airbnbs?
The single family one is a long-term rental.
Okay.
They've been there for so long, I wouldn't even recognize them if I saw them.
What?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, shout out to Abundance Life Coaching. I see you in Jimmy's Instagram, Jimmy LaRue. He's one of the bros, one of our friends. And Dustin, you invested in some, it's mostly physical, mostly personal training. And then there's a little bit of mindset stuff and a little bit of life stuff. What inspired you to do that, and what results have you seen, and what have been the benefits? How did you make the decision that like, yeah, I'm going to get like some personal training, coaching?
Sure. Yeah. No. So I'm friends with another mutual friend of your guys, is Jordan Wildman. And I just have seen like his progress and his growth through personal development and things like that. And we made the decision last year for this year that we were going to put in a swimming pool. And I was like, gosh, like all the kids are going to be over here, all the friends, all the adults. I'm going to be in a swimsuit like all the time. I want to be confident in my appearance. And I was just, at a Real Producer event, which is like a local real estate get together once a month. And Jordan was on the panel. And I'd been following like Jordan and Jimmy on social media, like on what they had done together. And like Jordan lost like 20 to 30 pounds, I think, working with Jimmy. And Jimmy had come out to support Jordan talking on the panel. And I thought that was super cool. And I was just like, gosh, like it feels like kind of God aligning this guy in my path. It's someone that I had seen on social media, thought about reaching out to, and I was like, no, like just do it yourself, like figure it out. And then seeing him like in person, it felt like God was like throwing him in my path. Like, hey, here he is, like talk to him. And so I talked to him, like scheduled a time to talk to him on the phone, kind of like dive deeper into what we wanted to accomplish. And yeah, been doing it ever since. It's probably like one of the biggest, best investments that like I think you can make in yourself is your health.
Yeah.
You can't, get it back, so to speak, at least not easily.
Yeah.
So wish I could have started like 10 years ago.
What would you say? So we just did a podcast with another guy who talked about health, and he talked about health as like, your mental, spiritual, and your physical health. What has he done for each side of that? Like, has he helped you with your spiritual health, your mental health, and your physical health? Or what would you say on those 3 points?
What I think is cool about Jimmy, or as I like to call him, James, it's kind of like he will give or pour into whatever side of that spectrum that you're looking for.
Yep.
So like for me initially it was like all about health. Like
Yep.
I wanted, to get healthy. Well, then he invites you to Bible study. You're like, okay, we already went to church and everything, and go to the same church as he does, which we didn't know at the time.
Yep.
And so we're like, okay, that kind of kept us committed to like, okay, we're going to go every Sunday instead of just like when we happen to wake up. And then it's like, okay, this year we're going to make a bigger effort to like try to go to this Bible study thing he does, like, which opens your eyes to other things. And then as far as mindset goes, it's just like, having conversations with someone that kind of like can put things in different perspectives than you might have thought of because of how you were brought up or how you were raised, can really help shift and help realign where you think you can go or how you think you can respond to a given situation. So I think it's huge. I think he's pretty much convinced my wife and I that we're going to do Psi Basic coming up this summer.
That's awesome.
Because we couldn't do it last year because we had a wedding. And just, again, God thing, it's like we don't have a wedding that weekend that it's happening.
Wow.
So it's like, and we normally have a wedding every single weekend.
Block it out.
Well, and that was the thing. We made an intentional effort this year to have one weekend off every month.
Yep.
And that happened to be the weekend.
Wow.
So
That's awesome.
feels like it's meant to be.
Yeah, I would say, because I think there is a big correlation, though, between your mental health and your physical health. Like, if you're not healthy mentally, it's very difficult to be healthy physically. And then whenever you're healthy physically, it's actually easier to become healthier mentally as well. Like, they're more in line than people think. Like, whenever people talk about being depressed and stuff, it's like, well, are you working out? Are you doing this? Like, okay, that makes sense, because like you're not doing what you expect out of yourself, and now you're not happy with yourself, so you're going to be less happy mentally. And a lot of times it's the way you think about things. You're thinking about it in a certain way that's preventing you from actually getting to the gym. So it's interesting how intertwined they are. So yeah, I'm really glad that he like brings them all up, because I think they're all so important, and they're actually more aligned than people think. Most people, dude, I just want a six-pack. Stop telling me all this freaking like mindset stuff. Right. Whenever you can get the mindset stuff, that's going to get you the six-pack, because whenever you're thinking about what you want to eat more, then you're going to remember, oh gosh, I remember Jimmy said this one thing, and then it reminds me that what I want in the future is better than what I'm going to have in the short term. So
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think too, when you're in that hustle grind stage of building a business, it's so easy to like let one or both or whatever go.
100%.
But like if I could give one word of advice to people in that grind, is like don't let that go. Like prioritize the time. Make that like a part of building the business. Is 100%. Like being a healthier, happier version of yourself is only going to propel that business further, faster, better.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, actually, because I think that most people, and then myself included, I remember telling myself this. I'm like, man, I'm gonna work out once I get to a certain place. Once I get there, I'm gonna grind this business out. Once I get there, then I'm gonna get in shape. Then I'm gonna work out. Well, it didn't. I mean, Tony knows this. I usually think things are gonna take a lot less time than what they actually do. I'm like, oh man, I'll have this. Like, I was going to paint my house one day. I was like, this will be done in a day. Took me 3 12-hour days, because I believe that I can do it so much faster. So if you tell yourself that you're gonna wait until something, then it might take a lot longer, and then it just goes down so far down that like, yeah, you're just it's too late at that point.
Yeah.
And like you said, while you're doing it, if you can build it while you're going through it, your business is actually going to shoot up more, because you're going to have more energy. You're going to be happier. You're going to be able to actually do better in the business, because now you're not setting that aside, letting one side, your business go up and your health stay down here. And now you're like in conflict with yourself and what your own expectations are and beliefs. Yep. So yeah, I think you're 100% on.
And if you can build these habits before you have children, even easier.
Really?
I'm building after the fact. So it's like a little bit more challenging. But
yeah. Dude, I love that you don't use that as an excuse either, because I hear a lot of other people that use that as an excuse. Well, I have kids. Okay. So what I always tell people, this is a mindset thing. I always tell people to ask themselves, is there other people who are working out who have kids. Okay, so it's possible. So stop telling yourself that you can't do it. It's more difficult. I will give you that. It is more difficult. And yes, I cannot relate because they're always like, well, you don't have kids. You don't know what it's like. You're right. I don't know what it's like. But is there other people who are doing it who have kids? So it's possible. So instead of you saying, I can't do it, and this goes to any situation, whatever situation you're in, whether you have kids, whether you're, working 12 hours a day, like whatever excuse that you put yourself in, ask yourself, is somebody else in the same situation as you and still working out or doing whatever it is that you want to do? So if they are, then you know it's possible. So now instead of thinking, I can't do it, and telling your reasons why you can't do it, like you basically have to come to terms with, I'm choosing not to do it. That is, if you say that, I'm completely okay with it. I'm like, cool, you're choosing not to do it. That's a fact. That's okay. If you say I can't do it, that's bull crap, and I'm going to call you out.
And if you really want it, then ask yourself, how can I? And
that's a great question.
David Goggins actually doesn't even go that far, because that's more empowering. I was listening to David Goggins, and he was just, it's more like a sense of wonder and a sense of like, who could I become? So he asks himself, what if I did that? Like, how would I feel about myself then? What if I did that? Then like, maybe I would be the exception. Like, what if I did that? How cool would that be? And so he starts to more like fantasize on like the possibility, than like trying to figure out what to do. More like, if I play around with my mentality and I start to daydream about the potential future, and then I go like, wow, that potential future would be really, really cool, and breathe a bunch of energy into that potential future, it's like, wow, that's compelling, and that makes me want to take action. Now I can ask, how can I? Because, some people don't want to go from I can't to how can I? They need like a step in between. So just ask yourself, what if you did?
Yeah, that's great.
And think about just how proud your kids could be of you. Of like, wow, yeah, dad's really like working out. So that way, like when you get to that point where like you're at freaking Disney World and your 8-year-old daughter like, trips and like twists her ankle, now you have the strength to like carry her to something otherwise you might not have, because you chose like, oh, I have kids, I can't work out.
Yep. Yeah, it's like you have kids, so you should work out.
Correct.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, like you're trying to now extend your longevity to support them.
Yep.
Like you want to be able to walk them down the aisle,
Yep.
like go to their graduation, like be at all the things, and not be in like a freaking wheelchair because you chose to eat Snicker bars for the rest of your life.
Yep. And you know what that is? That's mindset. That's just a shift in your mindset, because like it's funny because you're hitting the same circumstances. You have the same circumstances, but you're changing your perspectives about it. Instead of using your kids as an excuse, now you're using them as your motivation.
Correct.
Your situation didn't change. The story that you told yourself about the situation changed.
We're getting some ending questions here. What was your favorite, best, or most interesting failure?
My favorite or most interesting failure? Gosh. My most interesting failure. I don't know. I'll have to think about that one. I don't know. Like, not to say that I haven't failed. I've failed plenty.
What's the greatest lesson that you've learned? Because, with a lesson usually comes some sort of pivot.
Sure.
What's the greatest lesson that you've learned?
So I had an opportunity where to photographed an event, and then there was like one photo that that was missed, and I didn't realize it at the time. And after the fact, I was like, gosh, like, nah, you screwed up. And it's a humbling experience to realize, like, you screwed up. And you're like, okay. Kind of going into mindset is like, I don't want to just call and be like, hey, I screwed up. I wanted to have a solution to the problem. So, like, that helped me work through, like, okay, if we have future problems like this, like, always come up with, like, a win-win ahead of time. So that way, like, they're not like, you're just presenting the problem. You're presenting the problem, and this is how we can fix it.
Yep.
And so I'd recommend that to anyone if, like, you screwed up in any way. It's like, okay, come up with how the fix before you tell the person you screwed up.
Yeah, that's great.
Because then it was like, okay, here was what I did, but we're going to like be together again in 2 weeks. Let's just redo it. Like, no big deal. They didn't receive it well, but I would think that others would.
Yeah, and that's on them. That's what I always tell people too, is if you create that structure, that's on them how they receive it. That's not on you. You provided a structure that is like your intentions were to fix the problem and like do it. It's not about how they receive it. That's their responsibility.
Correct. Yes.
All right, legacy question. Have you seen this question before? Oh, we still got the switcher still working? Okay. Legacy question. 66 years from now,
That's what I'm dying.
You're on your deathbed. You're on your deathbed, and you get a final message to the world. Could be a sentence, a mantra, a paragraph, a billboard in Times Square. It's your legacy message, the message that people are going to remember you for. And it's your message to the world. It's your message to your community, to your kids, to something that you think that the world needs to hear.
Sure.
What is your message?
Sell to LTD property.
Let's put that on his tombstone.
We will pay the additional money to have that.
We don't care that he was cremated. Like, we're still putting the... No, I would probably say, gosh, it's so deep. Something to the extent of like, our time on this mortal plane is rented. Like, we don't own this time. Like, every day is a gift. And, you know, like, what a gift that, like, the three of us, like, woke up alive today. And, like, what we choose to do with that time, you know, it's really up to us. And so it's just, like, make the most of the time you have and love on the ones you love, give to the ones you can give to, and have a good time doing it.
So our listeners should get a hold of you by going to Instagram and looking up Art Home Photo, or
Sure.
going on Facebook, or do you have an email or a phone number that they need to reach out to?
arthomephoto@gmail.com, arthomephoto.com. All the Art Home Photos are us. Anywhere you can see pictures, you'll see our stuff. If you are on Zillow or realtor.com, you've seen our work. If you've seen any of these guys' homes, you've seen our work. We're investor friendly. We shoot for tons of investors, probably not as many as I would like, because most of them are cheap. But
You just offended like 90% of
90% of your audience. Cool. Hot take. Frugal. They're
you're
frugal.
just too expensive.
That's right. No, you just don't value good marketing. But yeah, we take probably close to 90% of the real estate photography in Fort Wayne and the surrounding area. So we're always continuing to grow in this market specifically. And yeah, if anyone needs help or we can serve someone in that way, we'd love to have a conversation.
Boom.
Awesome. Well, do you have any final thoughts you want to share with our listeners?
Gosh, invest in your health this year. Invest in your mindset. Sci Basic is coming up. I don't know if you guys have talked about that on this at all, or it's from all that I've understood from it. You guys have both been through it a million times, and others. I'll be there, and yeah, should be a good time. If you're looking to take your marketing to the next level, like I said earlier, like we're happy to help. I think this year, especially, like video is going to be king. I keep preaching to people, like if you can fine tune your video marketing for whatever business you're in, doesn't have to be real estate. I think that's going to really set you apart as this market and this economy sort of shifts and pivots. Your social media in tandem with how you present yourself in video. So yeah, and we do all of that. So
I like it.
yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah. Thanks, bro. See you guys on the next one. Peace.
Peace.